Good evening. Call to order the Concord Township Board of Trustee meeting for Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Mrs. Dawson, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Lucci.
Present.
Mr. Dondorfer.
Present.
Mr. McIntosh.
Present. Next order of business is the approval of minutes. We had two sets of minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the October 6, 2021 public hearing minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the October 6th, 2021 regular trustee meeting minutes.
And I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving into elected officials report. Fiscal Officer Amy Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. I have a financial fact for the evening. We had a resident who was inquiring about the American Rescue Plan Act funds. In 2021, we received $950,825.37 from the ARP. Final guidelines will not be published until the end of the year, so we don't have any specific plans to spend it. Once the final guidelines are published, we will evaluate on how to properly utilize these funds. We are also consulting with our law director to ensure we are following current rules while we plan different scenarios. We have 2024 to spend this particular money, and as far as I'm aware at this point, none of it can be used for the fire station projects. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Dawson. Moving into the trustees report, Mrs. Lucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had the pleasure of presenting our resolution to our Garden Club members at their luncheon to recognize them for their 60 years of service and accomplishments. A lot of great ladies there. I continue to get questions regarding the pickleball courts. I see the fences are up and they look spectacular, so great job. And questions about Halloween. When is trick-or-treating seem to be sort of the question of the week. And some more questions about when the fire stations are starting and the bids and that sort of thing, which we've been talking about. I'm also continuing to get more information regarding the possible COPS grant to increase police presence in Concord. I know it's sort of a hot topic right now, and just want to make sure we get all the possible information before we settle on any kind of decision. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Lucci. Mr. Dondorfer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't get too many calls since our last meeting. I did arrive here early today, though, so I had some other business to take care of, and went over to the pickleball courts with Mr. Rose, and they look spectacular. Fences up, the nets are going in tomorrow, so by afternoon I think we'll have some people out there playing. It really is a nice spot for it over there. I did get some calls about Halloween, like Mrs. Lucci did, and we hope that everybody enjoys that time and does it safely. I would like to share, since we talked about safety services, just before the meeting today, I got a nice email that was forwarded to me by Chief Sabo and Deputy Chief Tiriaco regarding Lieutenant Zach Ropus from the Sheriff's Department, who wrote a nice appreciation letter regarding one of our firefighters. I thought I'd share since we're talking about first responders a little bit here tonight. Chief Sabo and Deputy Chief Tiriaco, I wanted to take a minute to recognize firefighter Adam White. Upon taking over the Lake County Sheriff's Office Field Training Officer program, I felt that one thing we as an agency did not train much on was how to treat ourselves and our co-workers for injuries. Upon seeing this deficiency, I immediately reached out to Adam, and from there he and I developed a training program that all new deputies now go to. This training provides each deputy with instrumental training into how to stop the bleed. Adam goes above and beyond in making sure all those he works with, both on the road and on the SWAT team, are trained to the highest standards we expect. It is people like Adam that make this community great, and that we uphold the highest standards that we expect are held to by the community. Respectfully, Lieutenant Zach Ropus. And I just thought it was fitting when you see so much going on nationally that first responders are up against, to see that we have such a great group here that collaborate and work well together. And we're fortunate to have good first responders here. So I thought it was nice. I'd like to share that with our residents. And that's all I have for my report.
Thank you, Mr. Joyner. But yeah, it is really nice to see that we have such a cooperative first responder community here in Lake County, not just in Concord, but everywhere. It's really great. Haven't been too busy. My feelings are hurt. I didn't get any calls asking me about when trick-or-treating is. I have been busy doing a little bit of economic development and kind of continuing that process of talking with the county about some businesses that are looking to locate into Concord Township. I had fielded a couple of calls about zoning, specifically somebody asking about what we could do with respect to a business. And there was at one point a sign put up that wasn't in compliance with their sign regulation, and the zoning departments dealt with that. And the resident had some continued complaints about the unsightliness of the property and whatnot, and I had to go into explaining that we're a township and we don't have all of the ordinances, and got it asking about a couple other things that related. And I said, look, that's not in the scope of the township. It's something that you need to talk to state or county agencies for. So it was a good conversation, and he was grateful for the return call. We had some emails back and forth, and that was a constructive call regarding zoning. And speaking of zoning, I wanted to address something that I was made aware of regarding some comments on social media, and in so much as that there are mistruths or twisted things on social media. I feel compelled to straighten a few things out. So responding to a comment that was made on Nextdoor, and it was shared with me, and I don't have access to comment on it, so I'm going to use the bully pulpit here. The statement was, since the state is helping the township financially, the city will allow Section 8 housing built near 44 and Cryle area. That was the statement that was made online, and the question was being asked as to how people felt about it. So let me be clear. The state isn't helping the township financially. In 2020, Concord Township received CARES Act funding. We had a couple rounds of that, and those were applied to pandemic-related expenses last year. We have a lot of conversation about that. And we adopted those spending resolutions and took care of that last year within, just like the CARES Act, with the appropriate amount of time. In 2021, the federal government in January of this year passed the American Rescue Plan, which is commonly referred to as ARP or ARPA funds. People say it both ways, so it's one thing. Both CARES Act and ARPA funds have been distributed to various local government based on different formulations across the entire country, and that happens to include Concord Township. As with the CARES Act funds, there are regulations which govern how we can spend the ARPA funds, which Mrs. Dawson just covered this evening, and we are still waiting on formal guidance for that, but we have an idea at least of what it does include at this point. We actually most recently discussed this at the trustee meeting on October 6th, a couple weeks ago, about the possibility of using ARPA funds to support law enforcement as well as potentially some water infrastructure. We have the legal department researching those, as well as Mrs. Dawson and her team in the fiscal department, just to make sure we're on par with that and to make sure that when we get around to utilizing those funds, they'll be done properly. Moving on to address the Section 8 housing remarks. Now, this is something that I've been dealing with since I was on the zoning board and as a candidate in the township when I was doing door-to-door. And it should be understood that none of the funds that we're talking about have anything to do with zoning and development and housing. That's a totally commingling an issue that's just not at all related. Concord Township, nor does any other city or township, have the legal authority to block or prevent Section 8 housing. To do so is an illegal act of discrimination, and courts have upheld that. There are properties in Concord Township now where owners do accept Section 8 vouchers, and I did have an opportunity to speak with neighbors who had concerns or complaints about that, which falls back on our zoning codes, and we enforce those things based on that. Concord Township is not legally able to prevent rental units in our zoning code. If someone wants to rent a property, that's within their legal right to do so. And we're not able to block a private property owner from accepting those vouchers. So Concord Township is focused on maintaining and enforcing our zoning regulations to support a quality, well-kept community. This board has placed a priority on enforcing certain actions of our zoning code, and we've all been involved in fielding requests pursuant to the individual calling me in the last couple of weeks to ask about this. So we are diligent about enforcing those zoning codes, and we are putting a little extra effort into it this year about taking care of some of junk motor vehicles and just unkeptness of properties. So we're staying on top of it. But I just want to be very clear that the funding that we're getting that's coming out has nothing to do with development and zoning, and there's no conversation or no control on the trustee board about what we can do with ARPA, with Section 8 housing. And with that, I would like to just close by saying, in the last week or two, I received a really nice email from some people that just moved into Concord Township, said they watched the zoning meetings and that they enjoy what's going on. And then I was really impressed with the fact they said when they researched the community, they did a lot of diligence up into and reading our comprehensive plan and some of the corridor studies, which I found was interesting because unless you're into this stuff, it's not exactly entertaining reading. So, and with that, we'll conclude my report. So we will move into department reports with Administrator Rose.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh, members of the board, Mrs. Dawson, members of the audience. Couple quick things, it's been touched on, but the fence at the pickleball court was installed today. Service department's going to wash the courts tomorrow and install the nets, so they should be open and ready for use by the end of the day tomorrow. Our website, we are currently migrating to a new hosting platform. That is almost done. I say this because there may be a 1 or 2 day delay as we're doing this migration in establishing the link to view this meeting from the website. It will be posted on the township's YouTube page, but you may not be able to click the link that takes you to the meeting for a day or two. We're working through that as quickly as we can, but rest assured that our meetings will all be published to the website as they always are. Reminder, I will be out of the office on Friday. I will be down attending the OTA's training seminar. Actually, a fellow administrator and I are going to be teaching a class on limited home rule, and then I'm going to roll over and I'll be attending the ARPA funds information session that's being put on by the OTA. And as it's been mentioned, by Mrs. Dawson, we're working with the law director to ensure that we're going to utilize our ARPA funds appropriately. We're focusing on using some of these funds for law enforcement. We're working with the law director on that. And just as a reminder to the trustees, we owe the county a decision based on their letter by December 1st on the sheriff's contract. So that's coming up. I look forward to seeing everybody at the Halloween hunt and pirate party on Saturday, October 30th. I think that'll be a fun event. And that's also followed by a concert by the Blackjack Gypsies, I believe. And then finally, a little bit of sad news. I will not be at the next trustee meeting on November 3rd.
Wow.
I know.
Is that a first?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
I will be visiting family in Boston that week. So
Well earned.
I thank you. So we're excited to see the kids, and that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that'll be an interesting meeting. Administrator report.
Right.
You're gonna have one done in absence.
Yeah.
I will ask one of the department heads to give a report in my.
I want Deb Asker to
Yeah.
do it.
All right, I'm in. I'll tell him.
Yeah, maybe we'll even
It'll
get
be
a little PowerPoint
an overly
presentation.
enthusiastic
We'll have your
administrator's report.
Have your picture up on the PowerPoint there.
We'll work on that.
Okay, moving into the next order of business, the audience portion. Anybody in the audience wish to address the board? Okay, and we don't have virtual participation today. So moving into old business, of which we have none, and new business. Do we want to take a minute and discuss, last time we talked about law enforcement, Administrator Rose did bring up the fact that, I know it's a hot topic, the commissioners talked about it at least once last week. And there
Every
was,
meeting.
Okay, so it's a running, I didn't catch the
Yes.
Thursday meeting,
Yes.
so.
Every meeting.
I know we're looking into it. ARPA funds is the deal, or that's one of the things we're looking at as an opportunity. Any thoughts? I mean, I think we ought to keep moving on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think safety obviously is huge for all the townships. Where, the amount of deputies we have now is way under than where we probably should be. So I think adding more is appropriate. Obviously, we want to make sure that financially that makes sense. And down the road, we have to make sure that we can keep one for one and be able to retain those 2 new deputies. So that's where we get a little bit, let's make sure that this is where we're going.
Yeah, I agree with Mrs. Lucci. I mean, I've always been a firm believer, growing up in the law enforcement profession, that safety is, critical to the stability and growth of any community. I mean, if we see it now nationally at different levels, when you don't have adequate safety services, it leads to instability in the community dynamic. So it's important that we have adequate manpower resources for our township. I think that we have always taken that proactive approach, because I was involved in it when I was at the Sheriff's Department. I saw the beginning in 2008 where, we had the townships had the option to contract with the Sheriff's Office for patrol and law enforcement services or not. And we took a very proactive approach then, and we did contract. We started with 5. We continued to build over the years. And with almost 20,000 residents, we should be probably on a per capita basis be between 10 to 12 deputies. And if we pay for one and the county pays for one, I think it's a fiscally responsible approach. We have to start off obviously, I think, small and slow to make sure that we can, afford it, and pay for it. I think in good faith. What I don't want to see is we can't do it down the road by trying to front load it. But the services that we get from the county, a lot of people don't understand. Besides patrol, that we pay for, there's ancillary parts of the law enforcement that we get. We get the SWAT team, we get the prosecutor's office, we get a 5-man detective bureau. That if we had our own police department and you have one guy on the road and he catches a big case, then he's out working it, and you don't have anybody on the road. And we have a mutual agreement within the other townships to share resources for mutual aid and backup, which there's a lot more of now as far as violent crimes in progress. So you get a lot of other, you get the critical component that it costs a lot is the IT and the infrastructure, as far as reporting and RMS and JMS and all that stuff that goes into running a law enforcement agency. So I think it's important. I think we have an obligation as a board of trustees to the residents of Concord Township to make sure that there's an adequate amount of law enforcement resources within the township, and we just have to do it responsibly.
I agree. I mean, Carl, I know at the start of the year you brought this up even before it was an issue with the commissioners, or before that offer on the table was for this COPS grant thing. So I agree. And having spent a little time in law enforcement myself, I understand, resources thin and the community's growing. And I definitely think that from a township perspective, Concord's growing, and we're one of the bigger, more demand on the sheriff's resources. So I definitely think that it's within we should pay for some of that. I don't have a problem with that. We're sharing resources. I mean, the county collects tax dollars, and the sheriff's department supports county-wide functions, so everybody in the county pays into the sheriff's department. But they have the jail, they have the Marine Patrol unit, they have the SWAT team, and those resources, the Detective Bureau, I believe, those are resources that are spread across the county. There's other things. It's not just the townships that receive the benefit of the sheriff's department. Carl, a couple times I've been asked by people, and I know the prior board, and I've asked Administrator Rose to pull some information, but even last year when we were talking about building the fire station, a couple residents said, why don't we just get our own police department and stop depending on the sheriff's department? I mean, you're running a PD now, and you were at the sheriff's department. I know that the startup costs are significant, but with where you see things now, I mean, we're getting a pretty good deal with the sheriff's department.
Yeah, I mean, look, now I think, right now for what we're paying, and I'm probably going to be pretty close, but I think it's about $823,000 a year.
We spent about $890 this year with the equipment and
with the
contract.
equipment, and you got to figure in the cost of the car. I mean, startup costs for police department as far as infrastructure and building, I think you could be close to $4 or $5 million.
Well, you're at about $4 million plus. You're going to need to build a police department building.
Right. And this is the problem right now within the profession. Finding qualified candidates to function as peace officers without lowering your standards. Okay, I mean, I know from doing the hiring of the sheriff's department, they do a very thorough job as far as vetting candidates and making sure that they get the right person in the job, because you can't lower your standards in law enforcement. We see it across the board, across the country. When you do, things happen. Okay, so you already have a system in place where you get all these extras besides the patrol officers. You get like I said, if there's a serious incident in Concord Township, we have the ability the patrol officer has the ability to call out the detective bureau, the crime lab. You got an on-call prosecutor. You have the SWAT team for critical incident response. To start that up at a police department now in the current environment would be very challenging for any community entity, be it a township, municipality. There would just be a lot of challenges.
What's the dispatch?
Yeah, what's the dispatch?
Yeah, I spoke with a cohort council member on another community here in Lake County on the west end, and I know that their population is about half what ours is, or maybe just a little bit right in there, and their budget for operating their police department was like $4 million. So we're
Right.
probably looking at an operating budget equal to. It's a smaller community. We have more people. I don't know. But
We get a great cadre of services and qualified first responders. For what we're paying, we couldn't get that anywhere else.
And I would assume that based on like the hiring dynamics, you're talking about that now. I mean, law enforcement's facing challenges, hiring across the board, and the economy's facing challenges. I would assume a startup department would have a tougher time attracting quality law enforcement officers as opposed to an agency that's established like the Lake County Sheriff's Department.
Yes, without a doubt.
Yep.
Well, I guess we're in unanimous agreement. We need to continue pursuing this. So I know I've got some time scheduled with Mrs. Dawson to talk about the budget and how we might kind of cut this pie, and we're working at multiple options. So I think I'm obviously a big advocate of taking a look at this from multiple ways and figuring out how we'll do it in multiple different scenarios. So I think we need to push for this, and I think we need to give serious consideration to this officer from the commissioners, because I mean, to get a second one and then ultimately figure out how to pay for it, probably a good use of dollars, and might hedge and set us up for the foreseeable future with a good level of law enforcement. Okay, if there's no other comments, we'll move into a little bit of new business we've got here, a couple votes and setting a public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the final plat for the Quail Hollow subdivision number 10, Phase 2 planned unit development.
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's none opposed. Hard to believe we're still platting Quail Hollow.
Unbelievable after this many years.
Yep.
Okay, next item on the agenda is setting a public hearing for some text amendments as recommended by the zoning commission.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend you give that 30 minutes. So I would recommend maybe 7 o'clock on November 3rd, and then you can either, you can shorten office hours by a half hour or move office hours back if you want the full hour. But I think to go over those and have Heather go through those for the text amendments, I think she's going to need 30 minutes, and that will allow plenty of time if there's public comments as well.
Okay.
That'll work.
I agree. All right, so that's the 3rd,
Before the meeting.
At 7.
7 o'clock, and that's the day after Election Day, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Sure is.
Yeah, don't forget to vote.
It'll be a long run, a couple
won't.
days. I was told I'm going to be deployed out on the east end of the county. I've never worked out there as a Board of Elections
I wasn't told where I'm
person.
going yet,
Oh.
but then I'm taking down the equipment afterwards. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wasn't
It'll
told
be a
that.
long day.
Oh, Lord. All right, so that takes care of our, Mrs. Dawson, can you give us the future meetings and announcements, please?
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. On the 29th of October at 9 a.m., there'll be a staff meeting here at Town Hall. On the 30th of October, the Halloween Haunt Pirate Party will be from noon until 2 p.m. And again, the Blackjack Gypsies will be performing afterwards. See the website for more information. Halloween, we observe from 6 to 8 p.m. trick or treat on the 31st every year. On The 2nd of November is Election Day. Again, don't forget to vote. 7 p.m. the Zoning Commission meeting here at Town Hall. On the 3rd of November, from 6:30 to 7 p.m. trustee office hours here in the conference room. 7 p.m. public hearing, and 7:30 or immediately following will be the regular trustee meeting that evening here at Town Hall. That's all I have.
All right, and any other business? All right, with that, we will conclude tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.